Need you, I need you. Ooh, 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 ooh. Good morning, y'all. I got a few minutes before my first client comes in for the day. I was just humming what I thought was the chorus of a song I was listening to just before I came on live. By the way, this is Rico the Opinionist. Welcome to my Facebook page, my YouTube channel. I was listening to, and according to the YouTube channel, the song has been out for over a month, or at least the video's been out for over a month. And again, I'm not a huge gospel fan, but you know, when I hear some songs that sound pretty cool, I like to hear people sing. Y'all ever heard of that? I like to hear people sing, and so there's this little young group, and I know all the gospel people know who it is, but they're called the Walls Group. They're made up of two brothers and sisters. They're all siblings, and I think the lead singer, one of the lead singer boys, you know, y'all remember like a couple of years ago, somebody sent his live feed out from a private group of him kissing his boyfriend. But yeah, that group. It's something about those gay dudes. They be singing their ass off. They be singing gospel songs like Lord Forgive Me and all that, but be singing their asses off. Yeah, but you know, I'm one of those persons, hey, it is what it is, and I enjoy the product. You know, some things I can look past, and you know, so what? That's how he gets down. But he sings really well, and his brothers and sisters, they sing great. And it's called I Need You. So go and check out their video about the Walls Group. They're singing their ass off. Or any other videos, because this is not the first time I've heard them. But I really appreciate their contribution to gospel music, I'm telling you. This morning, I was inspired to just have a brief conversation. And by the way, I share opinions. That's what I do. These are my thoughts. And like we all do, everyone who has a Facebook or YouTube, or Instagram, TikTok platform, you share your thoughts. And so I'm sharing mine. And y'all notice mine is geared mainly to the black community and our behavior under racism, white supremacy. And because we know we can point out racism all the time. And the title of this is how black people participate in racism, an important reason why HBCUs are not thriving like they should. In the last week or so, I involved myself in a couple of conversations about HBCUs, and it was just this week I just happened to go back to that conversation, because that's a conversation we've always had, right? It's an ongoing conversation about why HBCUs aren't thriving, and you know, what can be done. Then they throw on the alumni and we're not support. And of course, racism. They don't want to fund the HBCUs the way they do others. I get all of that. But we're going to have a real conversation about that and other things that are happening to black folks. We've already broken down 50 ways in which systematic racism impacts the economic and education, political, as well as psychological functioning of black people in this country. And so, but I've always said, if you truly believe that racism is real, we live in a racist country, why don't we act like it? And I get that from reading history. You know, we had African people who were enslaved for 200 to 300 years, cattle slavery. You know, the worst of the worst, beaten, killed, separated, sold off, raped, sodomized, dismembered, threatened. I mean, just terrible things. And just mutilated as human beings. But upon being set free, allegedly in 1865, physically set free, with all that mental anguish that they had to go through, and they passed down to their children as relates to the fear of white men and fear of all of this, they somehow were able to, even under the guise of strict, dead in your face, Jim Crow racism and all of that, slave codes, they were still able to build and maintain their own. Got it? Keep that in mind. They were still able to build and maintain their own, that group of black folks. Now here we are today, 150, 125, 140 years later. in days of iPhone 11, iPhone Pro, and we have, call those damn things drones. We have all kinds of technology and all of this, and we're supposed to be so integrated and we're supposed to be so advanced right now, but it's like, but it's something that we lost over the years. We lost something. We don't seem to have the same fortitude or the same intuitiveness or ingenuity as those folks who left the plantation, pushed off the plantation, with barely the ability to read or even to speak the language, but they were able to use their hands and their brains to know what they wanted. And so I understand all these so-called educated black folks and all these degrees. It's like we can't even put up a lemonade stand, and then when we do, we can't even maintain it. These people put up whole neighborhoods, whole communities, with the world literally against them, physically against them, burning shit down, pulling up on guns and threatening them. And we can't seem to get it right. And so that's why I said we participate in racism. We tend to, when we don't look back on those ancestors and see, well, damn, they had nothing and they built a lot. We have everything at our disposal. We can't seem to create anything of sustenance and maintain it. And I can go down a list of ways in which we participate in racism, but this morning I'm going to start with maintaining HBCUs. Now, granted, a lot of them were started by former slave owners. They have the names of former slave owners. And, you can name Booker T. Washington started a few on his own, so Tuskegee being one of them. Mary McLeod, she started Bethune-Cookman and all of that. So we have a few schools that were actually created by African Americans. But I guess, y'all forgive me because I'm trying to make sure I don't want to come across as too accusatory or too rough when I'm having this conversation, because I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of sick of it. It's almost like depressing, and it's also sad. When I had this conversation with supposedly intelligent blacks, every time it come up, HBCUs, how come they're not lasting, or how come they're not being maintained the way they should, and why enrollment's so low and all of this, and they come up with the same old, why aren't they being funded? No racism, they're not funding HBCUs at the same rate, and blah, blah, blah. But one thing we don't want to really talk about is how there's 40 million blacks in this country, 44, I think. And all it would probably take is over 44 million blacks, they send 2 million a year to HBCUs, and it will have all of them just have waiting lists on all of them. But instead, you got like 1.5 to 2 million black kids attending PWIs and 228,000 blacks attending 107 HBCUs. That doesn't make sense. And then everybody feels so accused whenever I bring up this topic. Whenever anyone brings up this topic, everyone feels so accused, so indicted. And when people say when you act out like that, means, hell, you must be guilty of something. Because I continue to address, we got 40 million blacks in this country. We can't seem to maintain and fully fund just 100 HBCUs, but we can somehow able to send 2.5 million black kids to PWIs where they literally get harassed, or they literally barely make it out of these damn schools psychologically unscarred. But you send them there. And I had a conversation with a man, shout out to Zoltan. We had a conversation. He shared with me a very poignant story, a very touching story about how his introduction, one of his parts of his introduction into when he attended Grambling State University, how he just met friends and They became lifelong friends. See, when we all know when we participate in racism is when, let's say, we know about the HBCUs, but somehow we lost the value of them. We don't think they're valuable anymore because we can go to the white schools. Just like black neighborhoods went down when whitey told blacks, you can move next door to us, and we took all our resources to them. We don't think, and we still pretend, or we'll acknowledge it, but we don't actually think that's the real thing. The impact, the economic impact, the psychological impact, social impact of when we decided to leave our neighborhoods and go elsewhere. And then how about those who graduate from HBCUs, go off to become CEOs and become famous and become business leaders and of STEM and social sciences and social science field. They become successful, but yet the HBCU doesn't seem to be good enough for their children. It's amazing. And I've heard all of the explanations. I'm not gonna call them excuses because that'll be, I've heard all the explanations. And y'all got to help me. Let me know when 2 + 2 stop equaling 4. And then of course you don't know people's situation. Well, you know what? All of us who attend this HBCU, we all had a fucking situation, a lot worse than what your kids got. Because of your middle class, upper middle class status, they didn't have to have a situation. We literally had situations going to Grambling and going to Southern and going to any SWAC school or MEAC school or SEAC school. We had situations in the 90s. And so it just boggles the mind when I hear people talk about, well, these people got different situations. Here's another one that really threw me off this past week. You can't force your kids to go where they don't want to go. Wait a minute now. No one ever said force. But what I don't understand is, you seem to groom the kids, to groom your children to do everything else you want them to do. And I gave the example on one of these pages. I just find it amazing that we don't seem to understand what grooming is when it comes to sending your children to HBCUs. I see if you got 3 kids, you can't send one. All 3 of them go to PWIs. Let's say if they go to college. All 3 of them, huh? And I get it. Well, you can't. But I can count all the pages, all of what I've seen in person. I've seen 2-year-old little boys with, and 3-year-old and 4-year-old little boys with Omega Psi Phi little TTs on, little t-shirts for little boys, or tiny little Delta Sigma Theta little t-shirts for that 3-year-old, 4-year-old little girls. Now that's called grooming. I mean, you want to groom them to become the next Alpha, the next Kappa, the next Q, but somehow you can't groom your children to go to the HBCUs. Did the Manning brothers their dad taught at UT. I think Peyton went to UT. At least, I don't know what the other one, I don't know if he went to UT. But the whole family went to UT. Knoxville, that is. And you have whole families that all attend the same college. Now, this is not guaranteed for everybody to go board. All I'm saying is, y'all need to stop the cap. Because somewhere along the way, you as a graduate of HBCU thought that you outgrew it. And you like, I ain't gonna let my child go through that. And y'all know damn well, those of us in my generation, y'all know the late 80s and the 90s was a different time, but we all look back on fondness whenever we see a different world, whenever we see the Cosby Show. We always talk about, man, I had so much fun, but you didn't think it was so awesome and so great when you can groom your child, at least one of them now. If you got 4 kids and you can't send two of them, and then it's, scholarships. A lot of us didn't have scholarships either. We went on student loans and shit. We went because there's a dedicatedness to blackness. A lot of us are like, it's all right. It is what it is. But then when they get on and talk about what's wrong with the funding of HBCUs, your problem, you are what's wrong with the HBCUs. Funding comes from bodies. as well as begging the state for anything. Just like if you have a business. You know, if you don't have any customers, how's the business going to flourish? And thing is, we've gotten so diversity and inclusive that we've forgotten about what it means to be black, and we forgot about what our ancestors went through so we can be these comfortable, coddled, bougie, uppity-ass Negroes today. Yeah, I said it. Those people literally got it from the mud with their own hands and all that, so we can look back on it like it ain't good enough. Did y'all know when Walmart started off, he started off a little shacky-ass little thing? Now, what of his kids? What of his family? Sam Walton's family, like, I want that little ass stove. We're going to go over here and do this. They grew the business to the multi-billion-dollar corporation that it is today. And how come we don't have that same attitude when it comes to HBCUs? You know, it's the weirdest behavior. You know, that's how we participate in racism. When we shit on our own product that we say that's supposed to be for us, but we don't even respect it. We're gonna have to do better. We can get on these groups and on our own Facebook page, we can get out and go to all these damn meetings and alumni meetings and all this, but if we don't at least send our children to the damn HBCUs, how are they supposed to survive? Yeah. It doesn't work like that. Every group understands the importance of group economics. And we even have a word for it called what? Kujiga, Gulia, that we only mention during Kwanzaa. Those of us who are not too uppity to recognize Kwanzaa. You know, cooperative economics. Why don't we understand that? See, when we don't participate in cooperative economics for things that really matter to our group, well, we suffer. But then we can say, well, you know, it's racist. Racism, you know, they don't want to fund. Well, where the lawsuits at? If they're not funding the damn HBCUs, where the lawsuits? Where the class action lawsuits? We don't even care enough to even sue the damn states. You know, we got all these black attorneys. Hell, some of these attorneys are presidents of black colleges. Where the damn lawsuits coming from these so-called black presidents that are attorneys? They playing games. Hell, some of these blacks who are black graduates, they work in legislators, state legislators, they're congress people. Where's the money at? So we participate in the racism. But it's a nice little crutch to lean on to try to hide the fact that we our damn selves are not doing what we're supposed to do to maintain, not only maintain, but to contribute to the thriving of HBCUs. And it's bothersome. You know, and we need to have the real conversation about why HBCUs are not thriving. Us! Yeah, we ain't send our own kids. I understand. You know, you have to, just like you can groom to do everything else. You groom your boy to play sports. You groom your daughter to play sports. You groom your daughter to be in pageants. But y'all can't you lose your power. All of a sudden, you give them a choice. All of a sudden, when it comes to schools, get out of here. Again, I remember one of my college instructors said this to me years ago when I was a student at Grambling. Shout out to Mr. Eddie Milton Jones. He said, our community, and he probably quoted from somebody else, but it was the first time I heard it coming from him, and it stuck with me for over 30 years. He said, our community tends to pay for what we want, but beg for what we need. Shout out to Eddie Milton Jones for putting that on my mind 30 years ago. Yeah. And it's so true. There's some things that we can actually do for ourselves in this country. We won't do it. All the stuff that we use, we won't do it. All the stuff that we need to maintain our lives, we will not do it. So either we need to do some therapy, get some counseling, or we need to go back to reading what the scholars wrote. Because so many of us, you mentioned Dr. John Henry Clark and a lot of these Negroes. I don't know who that is. You mentioned Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of African Civilization. I don't know who that is. You mentioned Dale Jones, Dr. Jawaza Kunjufu, Dr. Claude Anderson. Well, thanks to Dr. Boyce Watkins for bringing him out into the mainstream, but the mass of blacks don't read them. That's why we're falling behind. That's how we're unwittingly participating in racism against our own selves. See, calling out racism is one thing, but you don't pretend that you don't know that you're participating in racism. We're going to have to go back to what the scholars died and bled and fought for and died and depressed and angry and poor. Try to tell all these now. Who would have thought that we'd have so many W.E.B. Du Bois bourgeois Negroes? They don't think black consciousness is even a real thing. And I know we all have take our little digs at Dr. Umar Johnson. But hell, he's the only one damn near. We got others, but Dr. Umar Johnson telling the goddamn truth. Hell, even somebody who ain't into none of that kind of consciousness at all. Deion Sanders. He even tried to show us the power of our own money. Even though he was visiting, he showed us in real time. This is what you do when you invest in you. We didn't even take that example. It's just weird. Hold on a second, y'all. Let me get past this. Hold on. I know I'm walking around the neighborhoods and shit. Hold on a minute. Hold on 1 second, all right? I'm probably going on too long anyway. But anyways, y'all see what I'm saying? We got to have these conversations, and we got to start. Man, I'll tell y'all what. I know this is not going to happen overnight because we've been making these excuses for the last 50 years. Well, I know here. And I think, Travis Smiley said this one time. I was listening to a speech from him years ago. He was talking about black celebrities and the upper class of blacks, mainly black celebrities as relates to how they can't speak on political issues. See, a lot of us, when we start doing well, we go too far into that la-la land and we stay too long. So it's difficult for us to come back. Did you hear what I just said? We go too far into that la-la land of this reality, then we go and stay too long and we forget what's actually real. And so therefore we don't want to talk about it because we feel like hypocrites. Well, I guess I haven't gone too far and I certainly haven't stayed that long in la-la land of what's reality. And so we're going to have to come back. Hell, I got a black book list. If y'all want a copy of it to get some of us back, because we're losing in real time here. Everybody around us understands group economics. And I know, I understand. Y'all got your own reasonings for why you don't send your children to HBCUs, but yet you complain about HBCUs not thriving the way they should. I just find that to be amazing. So, but anyway, I just wanted to share that. That was on my mind this morning. Check out my description box. I got a little PDF, a little book. Now, I didn't call it a little, but it was a major deal when I wrote it. So it's a major short story that I want y'all to check out. It's called The Greatest Pain Ever Felt. Conversation with an absent biological father who never wanted to be found. It's all at $10. Hit me on that Cash App, $RicotheOpinionist. And should you decide to hit me up on the Cash App or the PayPal, please leave me an email address so I can email you a PDF copy of my short story. All right, y'all be cool. My client is about to hit the parking lot, so I'm going to go in there and be ready for the person and get myself together so I can psychologically, save some lives today, amen. Amen. Talk to y'all later. Be cool.